Booksmart is pretty much the modern version of Superbad, but a bit more PG. However, a lot has changed in the world of coming-of-age comedies in the past 15 years, notably how they go about shooting a film like this, because back then, whilst it would have fit right into the other films of that era, there was ultimately nothing that special about it. But now, filmmakers have so much more to work with, and on much lower budget. So in today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at how Olivia Wilde and Jason McCormick created the feeling of freedom in the cinematography of Booksmart. I'll of course also be looking at the equipment used, as well as the lighting, because there were some quite unique techniques.
I have no breath.
With a budget of just $6 million, the camera package was going to be small, and it was, with McCormick going with just the Alexa Mini and pairing it with Panavision's T-series lenses. As we all know, the Alexa Mini is one of the best cameras you can get for a film of this level, with an incredible sensor, compact form factor, giving it the ability to have a small camera department, as well as it not being too heavy on the financial side. It's a really tough camera to beat. As for the lenses, you again can't go wrong with Panavision, and their T-series lenses is some of their most advanced anamorphic glass yet. With high contrast, great aberration control, minimal breathing and being compact and lightweight, they pair perfectly with the Alexa Mini, and that's about it. I'm used to talking more about equipment, but this just goes to show that at the end of the day, all you really need is a camera and a lens, even if it is Arian's Panavision. As with a lot of comedies these days, the lighting is generally quite naturalistic, with elements that just amplify that much more. However, in Booksmart, there are several scenes where the use of lighting makes it feel like a dream, and that's what I want to start on today. So, first of all, let's look at the end of school scene, as within moments we go from this very organic but unexciting lighting to an extremely fun environment. And whilst some of this is to do with the confetti being thrown around and the fire extinguisher letting the light shimmer, there's also a sudden strong backlight or kicker, and this creates a subtle amount of depth between our characters, but also adds to the aura of this being a dreamlike moment. Well, maybe not for our protagonists, but everyone else. However, to look at a more interesting scene, we have when they arrive to the first real party, and the scene with Molly and Nick dancing. Now, I'll get onto the colour scheme in a minute because it has a specific name, but the lighting here really helps add to the overall aura of freedom, because it isn't shying away from us. It's quite a harsh light, and paired with the haze, it's creating a really nice hue around them. Now, I'm not sure how official this term is, but as it's being used to describe the lighting in Euphoria and Heartstopper, I'm just going to say it. And it's bisexual lighting, which according to Google is the simultaneous use of pink, purple and blue, usually used to represent bisexual characters, but it has been used for other reasons. So this is an analogous colour scheme, which as you can see is when there are three colours that share the same placement in the colour wheel, and like with complementary and triadic colours, they usually create a really nice scheme and you don't have to do much to alter it. And then obviously the rest of the film has this element of heightened realism that I imagine you feel on your last day of school, and it really pushes the you are now free aspect. For either one night or a whole summer, you have nothing to do for the first time in your life, and this lighting really helps represent that.
Shit.
So what is the aura of freedom? Well, to me, it's when the film creates a feeling that there really isn't much to worry about. Not just having freedom, but also having very little care for what else happens, within reason. Now, a great example of this is in Call Me By Your Name, where whilst it has a bit more of a serious narrative, the free feeling that you get when watching is there. And it's mainly down to the use of colours, how free the characters are to move in the frame, the composition itself, and the fact that it takes place in northern Italy in the 80s. But to touch on that colour aspect, as I mentioned in the lighting section, slips between having a dreamlike feel and a real life one, and that's heavily represented in the colours they use. Now for the first half an hour, it's a very normal palette, quite neutral, and it only switches because we arrive at a party. But this is something that gives us a nice juxtaposition to the rest of the story, as well as setting us up for it. Also, later on in the film, it gives us a break from all of the craziness. But to look at the film as a whole, it's generally quite warm, which not only looks pretty good, but it's also representative of the mostly strong relationship between Molly and Amy. As I've said many times before, movement is one of the strongest tools you can have as a cinematographer, because you can change the feeling of a scene in an instant by simply going from static to handheld, and the handheld aspect is what I want to focus on today. Now, we all know that it's used to portray uncertainty in a scene, to follow a character more closely, or to create a more intimate scene between us and them. However, it can also be used as a separation device so that there are clear barriers between what the director wants us to see. For example, for the first 30 minutes, it is extremely rare to see us in handheld, but then, for the next hour, it's quite on and off, and that allows us to dip in and out of observing their story and actually feeling like we're there with them. So, composition. It's the one thing that you can pretty much always control, and that has a ton of influence on the audience, even if it's a subconscious one. Now, throughout Booksmart, there is a lot of room. Whether that's headroom, looking space, there's basically a lot of room for our characters to breathe and to move around, which in a film about finally being free is absolutely vital. Now, for me, composition and movement go hand in hand when you are trying to create a mood for a scene. So the next time you are trying to evoke some sort of emotion in your work, I try putting the two together and seeing what you can make of it. And finally, to touch on slow motion, we all know that it's used to create a memorable moment in a film. The Matrix, Reservoir Dogs, The Shining, they are all moments that no matter how much you enjoyed the film, you will always remember them. And that's exactly what the pool scene is in Booksmart. Amy has finally let herself go a bit, she is at her most free, and there really isn't a better way to signify that. So overall, McCormick utilised colour in order to create certain emotions that subconsciously tell us what our characters are feeling. He used movement as a barrier between real life and what feels like a dream, used slow motion in the most memorable way you can, and he did it all with just one camera and one set of lenses. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Notice if you did, leave a recommendation for an analysis, leave it down below. Thanks so much for watching, and maybe I'll see you next time. Bye!